Blessed love and peace in Rastafari. Follow up from the previous joint. Tres cosas and a further joint, further consideration. So the tres cosas, from the preceding joint of this. When I talk about the devil being the ruler of earth, and the devil is not a particular people's ethnicity, religiosity, or otherwise. The devil is the ambition and the presumption, the proclamation of control and dominion over others, over life, particularly denying the authority of the Most High and the harmony of the Most High. Because that's what happens when one makes such a proclamation. It denies the nature of relationship, the sacred, holy, divine relationship. So that's whoever does it, whoever makes that proclamation, whoever presumes or Now, that being said and recognized, the third component that I'm saying just a minute ago, but I've said before, is that the prophet, the prophetic voice, teaches, reminds the rules of heaven within earth. And again, the huge follow-up to that joint is to not to abstain from demonizing the devil, to not demonize the devil, because that's how one becomes enveloped in the devilness. Instead, it is a matter of being honest and compassionate, empathic, not agreeable, not acquiescing to, not bowing down to, but understanding, listening, sharing, peace, truth, modesty, compassion. So, that being said, and recognizing that any position proclaiming dominion is a position of devilness, then it is easier to recognize that by definition and by nature, citizenship is devilness. The citizen proclaims dominion over the government and everything that the government proclaims dominion over. So that proclamation of dominion is devilness, regardless of what the ethnicity is, religion, or otherwise. So citizenship is devilness. Now, it's not saying anybody who is a citizen is only, absolutely, exclusively, but just recognizing that the further one envelops oneself in those pretenses, lesson is said for this already, it is devilness. Now, and that applies to every citizen. I'm on this anti-citizenship trope, huh? It's communication of facts and truth. And that's across the board, across the world, every citizen. And it's different than the subject of a monarchy. Not that the subject of a monarchy is absolved from responsibility. Absolutely. There is a fundamental difference. And it's beneficial for people to recognize that, because, again, it's not saying that somebody who is a citizen is only and exclusively a devil. It is saying that a person who proclaims citizenship of a democracy, a democratic government, occupies a position of devilness, a proactive responsibility in the atrocities that the government is committing, and that proclamation of ownership, dominion, control over life on this earth. Now we are all wrestling. We are all wrestling. We're all in that process of jihad, and we're all in that process of Israel. And in that process, it's beneficial to have knowledge, and with that knowledge, be further supportive and cooperative with life around us. That is the purpose of me sharing this at this moment. Citizenship is devilness. Every and anyone proclaiming to have citizenship is providing confession of devilness. Every being is wrestling. Every being has the divine spirit of the Most High Elohim within each being respectively. Each of us is wrestling. So that's the first joint. And one other thing about citizenship, another way to look at it is this. Think about a corporation. And particularly think about activists who are protesting, let's say, deforestation and all these other things. But at the same time, like the activists are shareholders in a corporation, and that corporation is doing the deforesting and issuing out dividends for the sale of the lumber, timber, for sale of the agriculture that's cultivated on that land, and additionally subsidies and public funds for the infrastructure and expenses involved in that process. So the activist who is wailing against the machine and wailing against the government and wailing against the corporation is actually a shareholder within that very corporation that is committing the atrocities. That's one with, and so when the activist continues on, oh, you shouldn't do this, don't be warfare. You're a shareholder in the corporation that you're protesting. What are you talking about? That metaphor and that actuality shares insight and an invitation. If you truly want to protest, when you truly want things to be healthy and well-being, stop being a citizen. Stop being a shareholder. Stop receiving dividends from the atrocities that you are protesting. What are the dividends of citizenship? You tell me. Why do you have the citizenship? There are the dividends. So anybody who's protesting anything and is holding citizenship, the shareholder, it's worse to be a shareholder than a sharecropper, generally speaking. And that seems to be the binary of the imperialism. That's pretty much it. To be a shareholder or a sharecropper. Voila. Now the second joint of consideration to share today concentration. Okay. It is about the devices. Like I'm on here, I'm drinking beer right now. I've been drinking beer for, well, this is a recent joint. I got up and now I'm sitting back down drinking beer again. I only had a slight amount or comparatively less amount of hard liquor, so my alcohol quota for this week is yet to be approached. So the second joint is about devices, and I said before that the whole device field is the opium wars. It is diluting people's attention, pacifying people, and preparing people to be funneled away. Quietly. So we see pain and suffering within the devices. And when we see kinfolk who are attached to the devices, this is one thing to do it in one's domicile. It's one thing to do it amidst outside the library. It's part of like the process of an experience of office. To do it in one's home is particularly vulnerable because there's a lot of information that people can glean by just looking at the background and then instituting that last try of conquest. So with regards to the device and the recognition of the next iteration of opium wars, one way to see it, one way to view it, one way to recognize it is this. When you see somebody who's obese and they get like their tubs of ice cream and are sitting and eating it, and you're just observing that, do you not feel pain? Do you not feel that the kinfolk's pain? Do you feel the motivation to go up and say, "Yo, here's a contribution for the cause, and I invite you to take your attention away from the devices and focus it on something that's increasingly healthy and well-being." So here's another way to describe what I just said, because again, you can see I'm falling asleep again. People on devices, when seeing it, it's like seeing people who are in self-affliction other ways. Like I said, if one is at a cafeteria and sees somebody who's just eating unhealthy and is obese and concerned about that person's health, does not cause somebody pain. If somebody's seeing somebody else shoot up heroin in public to themselves, would not someone feel the obligation of like interceding somehow or addressing the concerns, witnessing right there in front of the eyes? Someone is on crack. And consuming it right there in the open. Someone's an alcoholic and just drinking hard liquor. Is it not reasonable and rational to want to help that person, to feel the pain, to feel the dissonance in watching somebody eat like that, or watch somebody shoot up, in addition to how that affects oneself, brings oneself down, and struggling to find a solution of feeling better? That's what we experience when we see people on the devices. We see pain. We see self-affliction. We see negative effects in terms of communication. And relating to people, relaying on to people. It's too early to get dark, right? To get light. Anyways, that's some of what we observe with the devices. The opium wars of the devices. So we do our best to keep a distance, to keep things clean and healthy as much as possible. To minimize the experience of intoxication and concentrate increasingly on the remedies, the solutions of healing and well-being. But just recognize that when seeing the devices, it feels that way. There's a stress when we see that somebody has difficulty being able to concentrate and has to walk like this, that causes pain within ourselves. Particularly knowing when a person is doing that and actually lives in that area, but still doesn't find that stability. Am I also testifying concerning myself? Causes pain. We see the pain, we feel the pain, and we look for solutions. We look for the ways of having a conversation that invite kinfolk to let go of the devices further, at least. And to invest and partake within the healthy solutions, the medicine. But we're seeing crackheads when we see that. We see heroin addicts. And we see a lot of obstructions in being able to tell people, to remind people, to show people the conditions. That's part of the opium wars at this moment. So, one of the videos that I watched recently from recent downloads is kinfolk from England who are players, retired players, and now pundits concerning the sport of football. And in listening to the kinfolk talk, there's reference to a company that recently purchases a rather marquee football club. And now when people talk about the decisions within the club, and additionally people, instead of saying the name of the club or the name of the people in the front office of the club, what we observe is how people simply reference the name of the company that recently purchases the stock of the club as a persona. And upon completion of the services in the library, continues back in the other direction and provides closing salutations with comfort and relaxation, and there's appreciation for that. Wow. Now that has to be incoherent, what I just said. I'm waking up now. I'm like pausing. What did I just say? What was I talking about? I'll articulate it again, because I fused. I combined things that wasn't the intention at this moment. What I'm talking about is the football club. And how the football club is purchased. The majority stake shares are purchased by a private company, a presumably private company. And the private company is actually involved in industries that cause some of the most severe violations of life on this earth. Pharmaceuticals, plastic manufacturing, and just to name a few. How can all that be? Indeed. That's the company. That's how it makes its riches. That's how it purchases the majority stocks, presumably, of the football club. One of the huge, biggest, most valued, market valued football clubs in the world. Only so many are able to do that. This company does it. And the challenge is how people refer to the company. Instead of saying the owner, like I said a second ago, instead of saying the owner or the majority individual owner or otherwise, people say such and such company has to make a decision of whether they're going to keep the manager or not. Such and such company is preparing to enter into the negotiations. This is the track record of such and such company. And it goes on and on. But the point being that, one, the company is involved in some nasty stuff. So even though encountering employees of the company, their smiles and everything, it's just like, I know who the bosses are on that side. So it's challenging to hear people talk about a company in that way. And we recognize this is way beneficial free advertising, where when I'm posted up for a minute and I'm going in and out of sleep at the moment. So point being that when a company purchases a sports club, it actually is a rather lucrative marketing tool, because whenever pundits, people in expert positions who have trust and authority and charisma, are referring to the owners of a club for making decisions, and additionally, rather than referring to an actual individual, the CEO of the private company or otherwise, is referring to the entire company as a singular entity. And when referring to the company, giving it all types of free advertisement, and additional benefits. And in the whole process, significantly deteriorating the integrity and the miracle within and of the game. So that's one of the reasons why it's difficult to even listen, that we don't watch live matches live at the moment within certain markets, because we have to take a stand somehow, some way. And part of that stand involves also abstaining from drawing additional, well, I'm sleeping now, yeah. We don't do that. So that's the gist of it. And recognizing how that, well, all right. Something else here, and then it's time to go to sleep. Tended to. I tended to. That's an example. That's an example of what we're talking about when kinfolk increasingly lose sense of self, lose sense of awareness of what people are actually doing, to stop doing it, or to resist. Proper. So there was something else, follow up, I think I said. Solutions. Sleep is a solution. Balance, regularity of schedule is a solution. Momentum is a solution. Example setting is a solution. Honesty is a solution. I mentioned the book, the assignment that I'm working on at the moment. I shared the list of 124 teachers of the world, legends. I've yet to share the principles. I'm hesitating doing right now just because you already see I'm going out of sleep against my volition or beyond my volition. So solution. We're cultivating a study program, World Lit Study Program. I explained the methodology before. I also articulate, I reference that within the methodology there is legends, there's principles, there's the rivers, there's also the calendar of observances. And those observances occur, those rituals occur periodically within every year. So there's a rhythm, there's a relationship. So our lists of legends and ethics are connected with the rituals within the different respective pan-heritage experiences. So there's an intrinsic cycle of study, of self-study, study of knowledge of self, and doing it in conjunction with the traditional observances and traditional rivers. That's what we're doing at this moment. Well, generally speaking, is cultivating. We have the list, we have the principles, we have the rivers, and now we're working on the sequence of that, basically the syllabus of that course of study, weekly, year-round, in conjunction, in relationship with the rituals, the seasons, the cycles of the seasons. That solution. God willing, at another day, another point, I can make beneficial on that intention of stating the actual principles. I'm not going to do it now because the principles have a weight, and it's beneficial to not be drunk when operating heavy machinery. That is solution, and it's actual. And when we don't make this up, we compile it. Sometimes we do adjustments, but this is knowledge and solutions that is shared from Most High and with all relations. And we give thanks and praise. Students and teachers. All right, how about we get some sleep? All thanks and praise the Most High Elohim. Blessed love and peace in Rastafari.